Hi there, and welcome to the This Is Ibrox Transfer Reaction Pod. It is good to be back on. I'm your host, Kyle, and I'm delighted to be joined by Ross today. We are here to discuss the announcement that's just come in there about. It's one of the worst kept secrets in the whole of Scottish football, quite frankly, Ross, isn't it? But Connor Barron has finally been announced as the fourth signing of this window by Rangers Football Club. He's announced on a 4-year deal. On a free, subject to development fees. I've put that one in brackets in my notes there. Connor Barron on the whole thing says, give me 2 ticks, I'll just get that up there as it's gone away. He says, I'm absolutely delighted. As soon as I started talking to the club, I knew that this was the place for me to come. Everything seemed right, and I think it is the best place for me to be at this moment of my career. It is a club where the demand is high to win football matches and trophies, and that is something that I really want to be a part of. It was a massive decision for me, but it was made easy by speaking to the staff and the manager, and now I can't wait to get started. Ross, he's saying all the right things there. How do you react to Connor Barron signing for Rangers?
New signings always say the right things, don't they? When it's the first interview, they always say things that they get the blood pumping. Yeah, I'm really happy with this signing, actually, Kyle. I think this is the type of deal that I think Rangers should always be looking to do. They should always be looking to bring in, young, talented players, and especially domestic-based players, Scottish players. Rangers should always be looking to develop Scottish talent. Now, whether that's coming through our own academy and bringing them all the way through, or you take them from other clubs at certain periods of the career and you bring them into Rangers and you give them a bigger environment to play in with more expectations, higher demands and things like that. So I really, really like this. The player himself, I think, is actually a really, really good player for this league. I think we've seen that this season. I think it's fair to say that Connor Barron's probably been regarded as one of the best players in this league outside of the Old Firm this season. And he's really came through Aberdeen, through their academy, played at all their levels, been out in a couple of loan spells. And I think I looked up earlier and he's already got 85 club appearances behind him. So that's quite significant for a 21-year-old. We see plenty of 21-year-olds that struggle for game time. I mean, even look at like our goalkeeper, Robin McCrory. I know he's a lot older than 21, but how many first team appearances does he have at his age? So it's not a given that you're going to get them. So look, I think all round, really, really good deal for us. I think it's smart business from the club. I think it shows the direction we're moving in with Niels Coppin and Philippe Clement there at the top of this all. And I actually think it's a really good move for the player because Connor Barron had other options in Serie A and they had championship clubs interested in him as well. But he clearly thinks that Rangers is the next step for him. He gets to stay at home. As such, I know he's from Aberdeen, but he gets to stay in Scotland and he just gets to move to a club within the same league. The demands are a lot higher. We all know that. But he can go, he's in an environment he's probably comfortable in, and he can just look to take his game to the next level, and Rangers are going to get the benefit of that. So all round, Kyle, I think it's a great deal.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. He's certainly been one of the standout players for clubs out with the Old Firm last season, and a player that we have been linked with, and rightly so, for a few years now. I just want to pick up on something that you touched on there in terms of him being Scottish and playing in the SPFL. Niels Coppin said something similar to that. He says it's important that young Scottish talents play a big part in the years ahead, and we are delighted to add a talented midfielder in Connor to the ranks at Rangers. How important is that, I suppose, just in a general sense? Because we were chatting about it when I was driving on my way back home from work, and I think it was John Souttar under Van Bronckhorst in a pre-contract was the last player that we actually signed from in the league. So is this maybe do you think a shift in direction from behind the scenes, the recruitment team at Rangers?
Yeah, potentially. I think Rangers as a whole, as a club, are always just going to look for talented players to come in and make an impact. But I think there's maybe been times over the past few years that the support have felt there's been opportunities to pick up players within this league that we feel are good enough to make the step up, and the club haven't done that. You look at the likes of a Lewis Ferguson, you look at the likes of a Josh Doig. These are players that a lot of the Rangers support have felt that could come in and make an impact, and the club haven't done it. Now, I get there's a lot higher fees involved in those players. So I understand maybe from the club perspective, they might think, well, it's not worth that sort of fee for us to go in. Connor Barron's very different. It's coming towards the end of his contract. Rangers obviously think the compensation agreement that they're going to have to agree with either Aberdeen or it goes to a tribunal, whatever, is worth the move. So yeah, okay, maybe finances coming into it for certain players, but I'm not completely convinced the overall direction has changed. Like I can't see Rangers building a completely Scottish side going forward. But I do think it's great that we are getting to a point where the best Scottish talents can come and play at Rangers, and they can. I think it's important that we have an environment here that we can bring these type of players into, and they can develop and they can kick on. So I really like to see this. And yeah, it's interesting to think that the last one was John Souttar, because that was quite a while ago now. We've obviously had the likes of Scott Wright and things as well. But yeah, look, if we're looking towards more Scottish talents, I think there's a lot of people that will listen to this podcast and think there's plenty of other players in this league we should be going for, the likes of a Lennon Miller, David Watson. There's plenty of players in this league that, with time, may be good enough to play for Rangers. This one just makes sense, ticks a lot of boxes, and yeah, maybe it's the start of a change in direction.
Yeah, that's it exactly. We know that Clement especially has got a really good track record of working with some of the big names and that we see in Europe now that are playing in these Euros at the moment. So yeah, it's a good idea, and also it helps with in terms of having Scottish quotas for European squads and the like as well, because obviously with Ryan Jack going out the door. But that kind of brings me on to my next point quite nicely there, Ross. What sort of player can the Rangers fans expect coming through the door in Connor Barron? Is it calling him not a mini Ryan Jack, but the similarities seem quite obvious. He's coming from Aberdeen, central midfield player, likes to go in and win the ball. What type of player are Rangers getting, Ross?
I think there is a lot of similarities between the players, to be fair. I don't think that is as lazy a comparison as a lot of people may look at that and go, oh, you're just saying that because Ryan Jack was at Aberdeen before as well. There's maybe an argument to actually say that Connor Barron's maybe a little bit more all-rounded than Ryan Jack was before he left Aberdeen, because if we all remember when Ryan Jack first came into Rangers, he did look to be that type of holding midfielder. I wouldn't say he was limited, but that was kind of his skill set, protecting a back four, and he always had that Ryan Jack in terms of sweeping up. But when Steven Gerrard came in, he took Ryan Jack to another level. He started to play him as a number 8. He started to get more out of his game, and we actually all started to see how good a player Ryan Jack was technically. I think Connor Barron's maybe got a bit of that in his skill set already. Hard-working midfielder. He's willing to do the dirty work, as he said in his interview. He wins a lot of his duels, but he is tidy with the ball at his feet. He is always willing to make himself available for passes, and something I think that's been picked on as well for Connor Barron is his long-range passing. And I think that's something we've missed at times. I think John Lundstrom maybe always he would try and spray certain balls, but whether it was the right opportunity to do it or it came off, it was few and far between. We've not really had someone that can put their foot in the ball and play a long-range pass to relieve pressure or a switch of play, maybe since the Stephen Davis. And I think that's something that maybe Connor Barron has. I think he's got a good, solid skill set there to come in and make an impact at domestic level for us. But I also back the environment that he's coming into in a Philippe Clement, that he can take his game to another level. And I think that's maybe what Connor Barron's looking at as well. Okay, he's got enough in his locker to get him that move to Rangers, but that's not enough. He's clearly going to have to kick on, especially to make an impact at European level. He's going to have to become a more all-rounded midfielder and be better in every area. So I like the profile. I think the terminology is always used now, whether a central midfielder is a 6 or whether he's an 8. He looks like maybe one in the middle of that. I'm not really sure whether you could say whether he's a designated 6 or he's a designated 8. I think he's just someone that I think Rangers will be comfortable playing in midfield, especially in domestic football going forward, because he does look to be able to kind of do both sides of the game. And I think we've felt at times we've maybe not had midfielders that can do both sides. It looks like Connor Barron can do that.
Yeah, perfect. The bigger the skill set, the better the player, and the happier all Rangers supporters will be at the end of the day in terms of him coming into the club. But I mean, again, you sort of touched on it there a bit. A 6 and 8, it's difficult to sort of shoehorn him into somewhere. Is that the right word? Shoehorn? I want to go with shoehorn, right? We'll go with. I'm sure I'll get a comment about it.
Square pegs, round holes, always the one that everyone goes for as well.
That's it. But do you see Connor? Do you think he's been brought in as a starter? And the sort of skills that you talked about there specifically, how's that going to benefit the other players in the squad? I'm looking at your Diomandis in particular, your Nico Raskins as well. How's he going to complement the other players in the squad?
Well, this is an interesting one because I don't think we really know as a support right now how we're going to look next season in terms of a style, a tactical approach, even just a formation in terms of how we're going to line up. You know, Clement came in and he went for that 4-2-3-1, but I think a lot of that was down to the players he had at his disposal, and he had to find a formation that worked with the players he had. He's now having a summer window, which we can all see that the club are making a lot of changes in there. And it wouldn't surprise me if we see a slight change. Does he go to a 3 in midfield? Does he take that number 10 out? Does he maybe try and play with 2 8s? I'm not really sure. So that it's going to be an interesting one to see whether Connor Barron can break into this Rangers team and stay there. I don't think anyone that's signed for Rangers is given the assurances that they're a starter and are going to play every single week, unless it's a high-profile signing, right? But Connor Barron isn't that. So I would imagine that Rangers don't sign him if they don't see him as a good player that can make an impact in our first team. He's 21, right? So it's not, of course, a development signing, but this is someone that's played in this league, you know, plenty of times now, and he's shown his level. So it's whether he can make that step up initially. They might give him a bit of time to bed in, but I think Connor Barron himself will be coming in and thinking, I'm good enough to play in this midfield. I've played against this side last season, and I think I can break in here. And I think with the two options we've lost in the summer in terms of John Lundstrom and Ryan Jack, I know Ryan Jack had his injury issues, but they're two experienced midfielders who done well at times for Rangers. There are slots up for grabs. Yeah. So I certainly think that Connor Barron has a great chance to start the next season or play a significant amount of games for Rangers. But I do think it's an area they will continue to strengthen. I would expect to see at least one more central midfielder come in there. I think we can all agree Mohamed Diomande will be the number one. He looks to be the guy that will play week in, week out. I think we've all seen that since January. He looks at kind of a level above, right? So he'll be the one that plays. It's whether Clement goes back to a Rascan, believes he's good enough. And then you've got the likes of Connor Barron and things coming in now. And then, of course, there's guys like Kieran Dillon, things floating around. So, yeah, I think there'll be more to come. But I certainly think that Connor Barron has the skill set to make an impact for Rangers. Whether that's week in, week out, we'll have to see.
Yeah, and look, in the final question, just before we wrap things up here, maybe about the deal itself. I know there's been a bit of speculation about it. I know that Rangers informed Aberdeen of their intention to sign the player. I don't know if it was, I can't remember if it was today or yesterday that officially happened. But, you know, discussion, you know, it might go to a tribunal, but the speculation is that we might just say, listen, and Robbie McCrory might work as part of that deal as well. What's your overall thoughts on the structure of the deal and the fact that we've secured a young player for 4 years?
Well, I thought initially that the McCrory might have been used in this deal, but I seen that Aberdeen signed, I don't actually know his first name, Mitov, the St Johnstone goalkeeper, yesterday. They activated his release clause in his contract, and he's signed yesterday. So that maybe tells you that they've probably got the number one they're looking for to go forward. So that's maybe not going to happen. McCrory might go down south now. It's an interesting one because it must be quite strange for Aberdeen. They've released the player and then Rangers pick up the phone and go, by the way, we're going to sign him. So, you know, we're going to have to get this fee sorted out.
What a brilliant phone call that must be, whoever's making that from the Rangers end.
It must have been enjoyable. Although I seen that Connor Barron's getting stick from the Aberdeen support, which I suppose comes with the territory when you make a move like this. But yeah, I think Rangers have obviously looked at it and felt, look, any compensation fee that we, you know, come to an agreement on, whether that's through a tribunal or it's between the two clubs, it's going to be worth it for the player. They obviously feel that value's not going to skyrocket. I think the rumoured fee that Aberdeen were looking for was around $500,000. So it's whether yeah, exactly. So it's whether Rangers feel that they want to just get rid of this now, pay the fee and move on, or they let it go to a tribunal. I don't know how these things work in terms of what the fee is likely to be at that point. It is a compensation agreement for training purposes, so you wouldn't expect it to be stupidly high. But it is an interesting one. I thought maybe this deal would be delayed because Rangers would try and sort this stuff out first, but it looks like it's just they've notified Aberdeen and they'll deal with that after, which is good for us because you want the player in as early as possible. You want the player to start his pre-season training on Monday when the players are back, and that's not really for him to worry about. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't have anything to do with these things. He just makes the move as a player. So I'm glad that the club have went down that approach. Maybe that's the normal approach, and I was mistaken for thinking they were trying to sort the compensation fee out first. But I think overall the deal's a good one, Kale. It's low risk right? And I always think that part of Rangers' strategy has to be low risk moves at certain points. You can't base your whole squad and your whole recruitment policy on low risk punts. You can't go every single summer and sign 19, 20, 21-year-olds, sign 10 of them and just expect them to come in, for a million or less and just expect them to come in and Rangers go on and win everything. It's not going to happen. But this has to be part of the strategy. I think we've seen plenty of them at the beginning of this window. I expect that to change. I expect the recruitment policy to slightly be altered after the Euros when clubs are really active in the market and things trickle down. But I think overall the deal itself makes complete sense. I'm really happy we've got it done early because that's really important for Clement to have as many players in the door for pre-season as possible, get his message across, and it also just gets these players bedded into Rangers as quickly as possible. That's what we all want. So overall, structure of the deal to me, Kyle, makes sense. It's a 4-year deal. He's a 21-year-old. You're hoping that, like any player you bring in, he comes in, he develops, he gets better and better. If Connor Barron does well and he potentially moves on to another club for a big fee, it's shown that he's done well for us. We've been successful, so it works for everyone. And that's the way it's got to be at Rangers. So all around that, I think it's a great deal.
Yeah, 100%. There's certainly a pattern here with the deals that Rangers have been making over the past few signings with Enciala, Cortez, and Hefty, all young players full of potential. And yeah, it's certainly
Just
exciting.
on that, Kyle, that is an interesting one because you actually highlighted earlier when Coppin in his statement for Barron signing and saying that Rangers should always look to sign the best young talents. I think Rangers it looks like they're kind of trying to change I wouldn't say the culture, but the environment of the club. They're obviously wanting to move Rangers towards that players can look at us as a way to come and develop. So it's not necessarily, and I hate saying this, right? Because I always want Rangers to be the best, right? And there's always that thing where it's like, you should always want it, but we all live in the real world, right? That Rangers isn't the last step for most ambitious footballers, right? They want to go and play in the top 5 leagues, they want to play at the top level. But it looks like Cobbin's trying to identify these young players with the potential to go to that level, with the ambition to go to that level, and selling Rangers as the next step for them. Come in here, play for a club with huge demands, pressures to win every single week, the opportunity to win trophies, the support you get here in terms of the fan base is you're not going to get it anywhere else. What an experience that is as part of your career. And if you do well and kick on, we will facilitate a move to the next stage. And they've got guys like a Calvin Bassey or a Joe Aribo or even a Nathan Patterson through the academy to show these players and say, this is an environment you can come into and you can kick on. And clearly the club are looking at it as a Coppin as the man to maybe identify these players and bring them to the table. And clearly look at Philippe Clement and his staff as being the right coaching environment to take on these players, develop them, and get the best out of them. So all of these signings in terms of low risk moves or whatever, and players with a lot of potential, it means nothing if you don't have the environment there for these players to come into. And it looks like Rangers are trying to adjust that. They're trying to make things more appealing to players with that ambition. Of course, all players have ambition, but you get what I mean. Young players, a Cortez, for example, highly rated to come out of Colombia, moves to Lons, not really worked out, but you can come to Rangers and you can kick on to the next level. It looks like that's going to be part of the strategy going forward. And that brings a lot of excitement to the support because we want to win trophies. We want to see great players come through the doors and play. And I think that's going to work as part of an overall strategy for the club.
Yeah, I totally agree. It is an interesting strategy and one I largely agree with. I would add, I do think we still need that mix of a bit of experience in there. So I wonder when that'll come. I'm expecting some, 35-year-old veteran Belgian.
Before you were about to start shooting for Kenny McLean there, Kyle, you just held off.
Wow, you mean brother Kenny? I'll take that all day long. Right, what we'll do is that just about wraps it up there. To be honest with you, I think that was a really good chat, Ross. So thank you very much for that. You never know, there might be another transfer pod coming a bit sooner than we all expected there with some rumours flying about Twitter at the minute. But listen, thank you everybody tuning in and watching. As always, if you haven't done so already, there's 5 things you can do to massively help our channel out. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, turn on those notifications, share us as far as you can, tell us about all your pals about us, and leave us a wee comment and let me know if shoehorn and is the right phrase. But until next time, take care everybody, and we'll see you all soon.